What is going on, boys and girls? Welcome once again to the Bass Kayak and Beers podcast right here on the Paddle and Fin Network. Hope you all had a great weekend. Should be by the time this comes out Tuesday. And what day of the calendar is it? I should have checked that. Let's see, Tuesday the 14th. So hope you had a great weekend. A couple of things we can kind of talk about here in the intro. The Hobie BOS, the registration for the final Hobie BOS for this season, Darnell, just went up today. Today is Friday, and I think it hasn't sold out yet, which I shouldn't be surprised the way gas prices are. It's crazy. There was a lot of talk when the season started, and they were, selling out all these tournaments in less than 10 minutes that, this was going to be one of the ones that was going to sell out, probably break any previous records. But not a lot of entries, or at least the last time I checked it, I think there was under 100 entries in the first day. So we'll see what happens. Hopefully gas prices drop out a little bit, or drop down, I should say, a little bit. I know it's summer, regardless of the economy, usually summer, gas prices go up a little bit, but this tournament is in September, so hopefully by then things get figured out where it's going to be a little less expensive to drive to Arkansas. But anyways, got a great episode for you today. Bailey Eigbrett from the Serious Angler podcast. If you don't know Bailey, he's been smashing it both on the national trail this year, on his local trails up in upstate New York where he lives. He's always done really well. But I think he's established his name in the national trails with what he's done in the Hobie BOS. So I was excited to bring him on. I've known Bailey Eigbrett for probably over a little 2 years. He's kind of been a mentor in the podcast in some ways, also in kayak fishing. I've learned a lot from him. Since I started the podcast, he's one of the first podcasts I listened to. I have a lot of respect for what Bailey does, and a great guy, great human being. I had the chance to meet him last year at the Bassmasters Classic here in Texas. So again, excited to have Bailey come up. Anyways, that's pretty much it, guys. We're going to go to a quick commercials. Before that, go check out Douglas Outdoors. They're my sponsor for the podcast, douglasoutdoors.com. Full lineup of LRS, X-Matrix, and fly fishing rods. Amazing rods. Go check them out. We'll go to a quick Waypoints commercial. Bring Bailey right in. What is going on? Oh, you know what? I forgot to mention. Bailey is fishing, is actually recording while he's on the water. So that's going to be pretty cool.
Yeah. What's going on, dude? We're on the water right now. We got a little local tournament tomorrow, and I only had a couple hours tonight. So I was like, hey, Armando, you care if I do this podcast while I get a little practice in? But appreciate you letting me do it and try to fish at the same time, buddy.
Nah, man, my pleasure. And again, I'm more than understanding. I know, it takes time away from what you're doing. So, whenever you can compromise. And you promise you will catch a 10-pound smallmouth bass. So we'll hold you to it. But,
man, I hope I can catch one too.
Are you just graphing, or are you actually actively casting, trying to catch fish?
Right now, I'm not trying to catch anything because right now I already checked out a spot earlier today. Like I just got out there from about an hour ago and found a couple smallmouth that are on bed, but it's just the first wave that showed up, and it's only a small wave, so nothing promising because it's all small males. So I'm checking a spot in a different part of the lake. It's a little bit further along. It's usually a spot where big females come up, big green females come up, spawn late. And but we're like 2 weeks behind up here in New York. It's weird. Like usually this time of year we have 75 to 80 degree water temps, and it's still in the mid 60s to low 60s. But actually our Finger Lakes are further behind than our Great Lakes are, which is usually never the case. So it's kind of an interesting year trying to figure out these bass. I've been spending more time on the national trail than I have at home, so I'm trying to get my bearings back. So it's been it's interesting all over the place.
Well, you've had some success this year on the local trails, right?
Yeah, I've fished 3 tournaments. There's been 4 on the New York Kayak Bass Fishing Trail. I got top 5 in each of them, so I'm doing good. But I feel like I haven't been fishing at home, not in a tournament, in a while. So just trying to. This is my favorite place in the world. Right here, it's Cayuga Lake. It's where our tournament's at tomorrow, and it's one of those lakes that's super special. One of the lakes actually like I obviously have the YouTube channel Be the Fish, but it's one of the only lake that I refuse to film on because it's just that sacred to me.
Yeah, you don't want to give out
So,
the juice on that. So what's the name of the lake? Cayuga Lake, is that correct?
Yep, Cayuga Lake, Cayuga. It's probably one of the most notable tournament lakes in New York at least from like the big boat standpoint, from Bassmaster MLF. MLF's coming up here. The BPT's coming up here later this year. Actually, I think in about a month. And they're going to Godsmack them. It's going to be so much fun to watch that one. This place is special, though. It's got giant smallmouth and a lot of smallmouth, and it's got giant largemouth and a lot of largemouth. So it's one of those places you can come here in the spring and catch 25 to 28 pounds of brown, and right next to them you can catch 25 to 32 pounds of green. So it's a pretty awesome place. It does not get the notoriety it deserves.
Well, it's better that way, I think.
Yeah, it's better for me. It's better for us up here.
It's better for the locals, as far as that goes. I want to say that's where Josh Smith from Dark Waters, didn't he win the tournament? I think in Cayuga Lake last year, right? It wasn't for the New York KBF though. I think it was another one.
No,
I want to say it was Cayuga.
It was elite. It was the elite.
Yeah, the elite.
That
was an interesting
tournament
episode,
that tournament was funny, man. I slept in my truck that night, and Josh slept in his truck that same night with me because he had messaged me the day prior, and he's like, you driving, the morning of? I'm like, nah, I'm just gonna, camp roadside, and slept in my truck, and he goes, fine, I'll come out with you. And that was a fun night with Josh. I had a few beers, and he was like a nervous wreck. It's really funny watching him try to tournament fish because he's like asking 1,000 times every 5 minutes. He goes, you think my fish will still be there? You think my fish will still be there? I think he caught his PB in practice, and I was like, dude, your fish are going to be there. Just be the first one. And I still remember seeing his face after that day. I had a horrible day. And I remember coming back and seeing his face like he was like a ghost. Like it was awesome to see. He did so good. And you could tell like everyone knows it. When you have that first really good tournament where you catch them the way you dream of catching them, and or if it turns out better than you thought, like everyone knows those emotions, and it's just cool to see that. Especially for Josh, that was had a ton go at it. Tournament season. I mean, he's a ghost now. I don't think I've heard from him in like the past 2 years, but.
I haven't heard of him from last tournament. I think he just decided he was going to quit while he was on top. He's like, well, this is the peak. Let's just quit now. Maybe smart thing. I don't know. I wouldn't. At least about tournament fishing. I hope he's still fishing. I think he's doing some Brazilian jiu-jitsu or something. I don't know what he's doing. But
I have no idea. I hope he's still breathing. I'll say that.
Yeah, definitely. So you are you signed up for Darnell for Arkansas, or you did done with the Hobie BOS this year, or you have one more?
No, I got the Susky. That's what I signed up for. Yep, I was gonna do the Wolf and Fox River, but there was two motives behind not doing that. And the first one you already mentioned, that was gas.
Yeah.
Because I didn't need another 12-hour drive in my book for this year. But also Cody Milton's got AOI on lock, so I'm not really. Yeah. I mean, 3 top 5s, that's pretty dang hard to beat. But that's originally why I was going to do a couple of them to try to go after AOI. But with the gas and everything, I'm going to save my money for TOC.
Yeah, hopefully, like I said, the price lowers by the time, especially with the time TLC.
Gosh, yeah.
It should.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Yeah, fingers crossed.
Let's talk a little bit about your big win at the Hobie BOS. Remind me again, which lake did you win at?
That was Lake Eufaula in Alabama.
Lake Eufaula. How was that tournament for you? And, what were your emotions when you realized you won this?
Oh, man. Well, first of all, do you care if I cast and put this phone down so you can kind of see it?
Oh, man. Right. Nobody wants to see our ugly faces here. Don't worry about it. They're just listening.
I'm glad we're on the same page then. All right. So, can you still hear me?
Nope, you
Okay,
got caught off
down
on
here.
the. Yeah, now I
good?
can hear you. Yeah, now I can hear you.
You can hear me now?
Yeah, the
You
cross
guys are
shot.
getting the crotch
It's
shot.
it's
Yeah.
interesting to say the least. If you're listening on the
People
podcast,
definitely
don't
want to watch
bother
this
going
one.
to YouTube.
Oh, God. That was horrible. My reel just came apart. That was good.
Oh, there you go.
All right, we're not throwing that rod.
Yeah, that's a good.
There we go. All right. Let's see. I guess that was a sign that we should not be casting. So I will take that. I always take these little signs, like when you're going down the bank and you're not getting bit, and you're like, you skip something under a tree, you bird's nest, or you're making like repetitively bad casts. You're like, okay, I'll take it as a sign. You switch, throw something different, and you catch a fish, and you're like, Mother Nature telling me something here. But no, dude, you follow was awesome. It was actually just really frustrating at first, just because the storms that came in. I got in the weekend prior because I take off Wednesday to Friday before a tournament, and Monday, Tuesday, even when I'm down in Alabama, I'm working. So had to work the first 2 days, but that Sunday I got out for a little bit of practice. And what I've been doing for those is that Sunday, I don't go into it with any preconceived notions. I just find a spot on the map that looks good, and I go fun fish, and I don't really worry about thinking, I have to grab this, I have to grab that. I just go into it with, I'm going to bring the basics, and I'm just going to go visual, keep it simple, and start from there. And that way I can kind of get a good bearing on what's going on. And then my Wednesday to Friday, I can expand. And that Sunday was great. It was got 3 bites like literally right after I launched, and thought it was going to be pretty good, and dropped like a 7.5, 8 pounder on a frog. So I thought, originally I was thinking that I was going to be offshore, most of the time, thinking that these fish were coming off the bed. But I think they were a little behind than what we had anticipated, because the water temps were still in the low 60s. So with that, was getting all those bites shallow. I tried to basically ditch tell my brain to turn off the need to be offshore, and decided to start running some shallow stuff. And we got a big thunderstorm Sunday night, and it muddied up the whole lake. I mean, some places started to clear up by tournament time, but it was like really muddy in some places, like maybe an inch or two of viz. And so what I did, I got in the car and I started driving launches in creeks, because the very backs of creeks would be relatively clear than the rest, of course. But I went and tried to find creeks that were north facing, because with the current flows north to south, it is hard for current to wrap and go up. Yep. So I tried to find north facing, whether it's points, sloughs, creeks, what have you, and stuff that had clear water. So it took me until about the last day that I found this Florida tannic clear water, beautiful green hyacinth mats. And my first cast along it with a spinnerbait had about a 5 pounder come out and had 3 other ones with it, and basically pulled it away from it. I think I caught like 1 17-incher out of it, and I left. I just completely left the area and said, this is where I'm going to start, because it was the best stuff I found. So what's the point in, fishing it? Yeah. So I left, and, the tournament kind of it went perfect. I'm more proud of the way I mentally and strategically approached the 2 tournament days down there in that tough fishery than I think I am about the win itself. That's one thing I'm always most curious about in bass fishing, is the mental approach to it, and I was pretty proud of how I handled it. So.
Yeah, no, I think definitely it's an understatement. Underrated part of kayak fishing or fishing in general. It's just your mental attitude towards, are you going to catch fish? Are you going to find those fish? And what do you do, and how do your mental approach when things are not going according to plan A and you have to transition to plan B? And obviously I'm not, an established national or even local trail angler, but I've seen my experience of it. I think it plays a huge part. One thing that I kind of wanted to mention that I've learned from you on listening to your podcast about that tournament itself, and it really interests me because I think that's not mentioned as much, is you were mentioning that you got this clear spots, right? This where you actually won the tournament, and you
Right.
didn't want to do a long cast because you figured if I catch, there were so many fish there. That if you catch one at the end of that long cast, that all bringing it back in, that's just gonna spook everything between you and the fish.
Yep.
How did you ever get to that conclusion? First of all, it makes a lot of sense, and I've heard that before. And that's something that I, as a novice angler, something that I struggle with. You know, as soon as I started learning how to bait cast, I want to be a macho man and cast it a country mile because I thought, well, I feel like a man when I'm casting it like 100 yards. And second of all, I figured, well, that's the way to cover a lot of tournaments without having to pedal too much or paddle too much, depending what you invest in. But that approach didn't come to me until later on with experience. How do you got to that conclusion, and did it work?
Well, I mean, a lot of it is situational, right? I mean, there's certain times when it calls for, when you're fishing a flat, you got to make those long casts. There's certain times when fish are being pressured that you need to lay off those fish that you need to make long casts. It's just certain times, like when I'm around cover, I don't like to make long casts, especially when, there's so many parts of the bank. So let me rephrase. It's just different when you're fishing a part of a bank and say 20% of that bank is your high percentage. But when you're fishing that high set mat that had a subtle shad spawn like I was, any part of it, you could get bit. Now, granted, my best bites were on the points in that mat, but I still got bites just around that, just the regular, straight up along the side of the hyacinth mat that wasn't like anything special. So when you're getting bites like that aren't that consistent, your best bet is to make short and precise casts versus making longer casts, because especially in a tournament like that where every bite really mattered, right? Yeah. I mean, getting a limit was huge. That was something where you don't want to screw up any other fish catch, because, I mean, for me in that, I didn't know exactly how many fish were in there, and my bite was done after 10 a.m. I think I got one or maybe two fish after 10 a.m. the whole 2 tournament days. So something like that is you got to just take into account from a strategic standpoint and think of it almost kind of like as kind of like you're fishing a laydown, right? If you're fishing a laydown, it's a long tree, and you cast right to the back of that tree, right on the bank, and you catch one, and you watch 5 other ones chase it out as you caught that one, you just destroyed the whole tree. Yeah. Whereas you cast to the end of it, and you slowly work your way to the base of that tree, you can probably pick off 3 or 4 fish, if you do it right. It's just kind of that same track mind is my approach to that. Is I was in no rush, the couple of stretches I had, they weren't that big, so I wanted to make sure I'm just picking it apart and taking my time. And I just noticed the fish were they weren't really moving too much throughout. So I knew that, it wasn't going to reload as well. So I needed to just pick apart every single pocket of that mat. And if the longer cast I make, it would just kind of hurt me. So that was just kind of my method of it, in practice. And I don't think that was in my brain, but, with the way that the conditions shaped out, it's just kind of something that came to my realization, and it seemed to work out.
When you're fishing a 2-day tournament, as opposed to a 1-day tournament, right? A 1-day tournament, you find a spot, you hamming them. You're not worrying about short lipping for the second day, right? You're just going to exploit that spot until every single fish you can catch. When you're in a 2-day tournament, at what point, and I know that's going to be like a lake, like in upstate New York, 80 inches is different than a lake like, let's say, Lake Fork here in Texas, where 80 inches is nothing. I won't even get you to smell the last place check. So I know that's situational. But not speaking of the numbers, regarding as it equates to each lake, where do you find that comfort to say, you know what, I've reached X amount of inches on day 1. Do I leave this spot, assuming that X amount is you feel comfortable, it's going to get you close to first place? Where do you make that? Do you decide, I'm just going to keep exploiting that place? I'm just going to leave this spot and focus on other areas, and hopefully I'll come back tomorrow at the same time. Does that ever play a factor?
Yeah, I mean, I think that whole thing's an equation, and it's an equation that can be difficult to learn, and I think I'm still in the learning phase of it. Yeah. And it's one where, I think it would screw a lot of people up if we didn't have Tony X and that standings weren't live on day one. So there's a couple different things. The first thing you got to look at is the state of that fishery. Are bites hard to come by? Because that definitely plays in that play that you follow. If bites aren't hard to come by, you got to obviously play a spot a little bit different. And then you look into, what do you think? I mean, obviously there's always doc talk and what people think, it's going to take to win or what it's going to take a day. And obviously people are usually always wrong. It might take more, might take less, etc. What you got to look at too is that area you're fishing. How quick do you get those bites? How easily do those bites come? Do you think there's more fish there? I think, and obviously it's fishery dependent, but if you think you got a good limit, and I think it's important to acknowledge that, like, when you get those bites quick and there's no one around you, you got that to yourself. If you can get a solid limit, I mean, in my personal opinion, I think you leave. And I think you monitor Tony X if you need to come back. It's one of those things that's a resource on day one is looking at the standings to keep yourself in contention. Because if you don't, you can fall out of contention and hurt yourself for day two, or you can still have a strong finish, but you're kind of, you could have caught a fish or two more if that that location is healthy enough, right? That you could have put yourself and stayed in contention. So, there's multiple variables that come into play there, but I think it's really, and that's the hardest thing with these multi-day tournaments. And I say that, and I've only fished 3 of them. Well, I guess technically 4 of the Kayak Classic last year. So I can't speak, and I'm not like some veteran with this stuff, but I think that's probably the hardest part of this beyond just finding the fish and catching them is being able to manage them over 2 days and not completely blow them out, So it's, people get excited, they keep, they want to catch them, you got a school, but, it really depends on how many spots you get, how the behavior of those bass coming in, what the conditions are doing, like the TVA, you got one spot, they're going to be pumping water the one day, and you see the next day the TVA is not going to be pumping any water. You might want to get your money's worth of those fish that day and then make a game plan for tomorrow. So there's a lot of factors, man. It's definitely per lake, right? I mean, it's, time of year, what that lake's known to have, caliber wise. I mean, I feel like I can go on for an hour about this one because it's a fun topic. It is, because if you get good at managing fish and you're good at catching fish, I mean, tournament fishing can come pretty easy too.
Yeah, and I think it's very situational, right? Like, and there's a lot of variables that go into it. Like you mentioned, release of water. Is there a cold front coming? A storm? A drastic change in weather? There's so much that can play a part, and not just the location of the fish and what is the expected, winning number that we all kind of have in our heads going into a tournament. We think like, well, it's Lake Fork, it's going to be 2-day tournament. You're going to need more than 200. If it's Broken Bowl, we were on the chat with the groups of guys who were staying out, and I said that I think it's 184 wins, and actually ended up being, I think, 184 and a quarter. So that obviously changes from one fishery to another. But like you mentioned, a lot of variables, weather plays a huge part in it, and the bite. But it's definitely like an interesting subject, and one it takes time. You can't rush that kind of learning. It doesn't happen overnight. You can watch YouTube videos, and I'm sure that helps. You can listen to Bass University seminars, and I'm sure that helps. But until you're out there on the water, experience it, it's not, I don't think it ever clicks unless you already have that pedigree where you grew up with a fishing rod in your hand. Let me ask this question another way. When did you feel that you've arrived as far as the national trails? Like, when did you feel like, okay, I'm not saying that you think that you're better than the Cody Miltons or the Guillermo Gonzalez or Christian Fishing on the world, but you obviously are good enough that any given Sunday you can come out with a win. When did you realize that you arrive at least at that level where you can throw in your name for a check?
Honestly, I still don't think I'm there. I really don't. I don't know if that's just a personal thing because I've always kind of held myself to higher standards. It's my inner athlete growing up, being highly competitive, kind of having the mentality that was drilled in me earlier that like to never be satisfied type of thing. But I mean, man, I'm only 3 tournaments in from the Hobie stage. I mean, that's like the best of the best from a kayak fishing standpoint. 3 tournaments in, I don't think I can make a judgment off that. So it's one where I think I have a lot more to prove. I've only done well in Toledo Bend. I had like a 40, I think it was 48th out of 200. And that one is kind of like, you can put a question mark on that. You really could. So it's one where I think I still have a lot more to prove. I think consistency is much more impressive than a one-off. So that 12th place at Chickamauga, felt good. But I definitely kind of still feel like I have a lot more to go before anybody needs to, do a double take, when I show up to a ramp, like I do, like when Adam Reiser and Brian Howell showed up to my ramp at Chickamauga. I was like, dang, I'm in good company today. Like that sort of thing. I think it's going to take a long time, and I think I have a lot more to prove from that standpoint.
What are your other than winning, of course, but what would make you happy, a result that at least keep you satisfied now that you qualify for the TOC? What would be, you want to win it, of course, but if you don't win it, what would be the lowest you would make you feel like, I didn't win it, but I feel proud of myself? Well, you should be proud of yourself just to be there, but going into
in the wise words of the legendary Ricky Bobby, you ain't first, you're last.
So you would be completely disappointed if you didn't win it.
Yeah.
You wouldn't be happy. You would consider yourself let me rephrase it this way. If you don't win the TOC, it was a waste of time.
Oh, okay. No, I mean, I won't say it's a waste of time. And like, I think I've matured enough to the stage of like where I don't get pissed or I don't get mad. I mean, I think if I make mistakes when I know better, I can get, I'll be pissed at myself for a day. But I think I have matured enough to the stage where I don't get mad or anything like that. Like I can acknowledge if I had a good tournament or not, and I'll say that I am mature enough to acknowledge when I know I fished clean. Okay, so like I did my job, I did the best that I could on that day, and just didn't find winning fish. But I'll never be satisfied. Like it's even a second place. Like I didn't go there, I didn't reach my goal. So my brain has just been like trained throughout my life that like if you didn't accomplish your number one goal, you didn't succeed. So it's Brandon Polinick had a video this year, and I think I've mentioned it a couple times on a few podcasts. It's it's not win or lose. It is you win or you learn. So that is my approach to it. I'm regardless of how TOC shakes out, last place or first place, I'm going to be there to cheer on whoever wins the dang thing, and I'm going to do my best to learn of what mistakes I make, and hopefully, we don't have any mistakes. But I understand it's my first TOC, and 3-day tournaments are their own beast. So that's just kind of how I am mentally, man. I think it's one that might sound harsh, but I think it helps me in the end because it keeps me in a good mental space and knowing that, even if I'm leading a tournament, by 6 inches, with 30 minutes left in the day, to know that it's not enough. I still got to keep grinding. Like I can, even if I'm Timmy Horton and I'm leading by 20 pounds in the last day and it's impossible for someone to catch me, I'm still not going to go order a pizza and sit at the ramp and wait. So it's kind of one of those things that just keeps you in a better mental state, and it keeps you competitive and never kind of like slowing down or slipping, if that makes sense.
No, that makes total sense. So going into this season, what have you checked off your list of what you wanted to accomplish? Obviously, you got the win. You qualified for the TOC. You want to win the TOC, so that's still on the list. What other check marks have you added to this year?
Check marks that I've checked off, or check marks that I have on the list that I've checked off? I got a local win. this past couple months ago, I think. Local wins are always cool. I'm leading AOI for our local trail, so that's kind of cool. I'd like to win that. It's out of your top 5. I'd like to say I'd go after AOI for LBBOS, but I know that that's basically statistically impossible, I think. I'm not a mathematician, but it looks pretty far-fetched for me.
Well, you consider it double points on the last day, right? On the TLC, not the last day, on the TLC.
Oh, see, I don't even know how that works. I guess I probably should freshen up on my AOI standing.
Yeah, you get double points. You get double. Look at Drew Gregory. You should ask Drew Gregory. Last year, well, not last year, the year before last year, Drew Gregory only fished 3 tournaments. Now, granted, his 3 finishes were pretty impressive. I don't know if you want. I don't think he won all 3. But
I should ask Drew. I mean, I talked to the guy like an hour every day.
Especially with a 3-day tournament. I mean, it's not likely, but there is a chance that Cody Milton doesn't catch 15 fish, So you never know.
Come on, let's be real. Come on,
it's unlikely. It's unlikely, but everybody, that's the thing about it is like in basketball terms, it's called, every and then you have a bad shooting night. If bad shooting night happens to be on the TOC, then somebody can sneak in and get the win.
Yeah, but I got too much confidence in that Cody Milton. He'll be all right. I think, you know what? Like, obviously, statistically, you're sitting there, you're like, yeah, I want to win AOI, right? But, man, part of me is like, Cody deserves that crap because I don't think he has an AOI.
Well, are you fishing for Cody or are you fishing for yourself?
I mean, I'm going to try to.
He deserves every trophy. Doesn't mean he's going to get it.
No, okay. Here's what I'm trying to say is I'm going to try to beat everybody's butt, and I'm going to try to win the TOC. But, like, if Cody wins AOI, Cody deserves AOI. That's just been there for a while. He's been a pioneer of this sport. I'd be super pumped to watch Cody win AOI. So part of me almost feels guilty being in my first season to even think about taking AOI from Cody.
Well, at some point, Cody Milton took like the throne, and this is my opinion, right? This could be another debate. But at some point, Cody Milton took the throne away from Russ Snyder. I think it was somewhere 2 years ago. Cody Milton kind of like took the edge on Russ Snyder. Because previous to that, I think Russ Snyder, for like 2 years, we felt like, Russ Snyder is just in another level. Yeah, he couldn't be stopped. So what if you're the Cody Milton and Cody Milton's the Russ Snyder? Because there's got to be somebody that's following him. He's not going to do it forever. Somebody's going to dethrone him, just like he, in my opinion. I mean, we can debate this, but just like my opinion, he kind of dethroned Russ Snyder. Somebody's going to dethrone him. Why not you? I mean, if you think about it, if you win at Darnell, right? Let's say you get a first place win at Darnell. That's 2 first place wins. Even if you get the top 5, that's 2 top 5 wins plus what you got on the pick with 17th place. No, you got higher than 17th, right?
No, I got 48th at Toledo, 1st at Eufaula, and 12th at Chickamauga.
Okay, 12. Yeah, so and then you go into let's say you land in the top 5 or Darnell, which you still got time to sign up. Then you go into the TOC. It's double points. It's double points. I ain't going to that. No.
Yeah.
Come on, man. If you want to have it, you gotta make the sacrifices. I mean, you're pumping you up. I don't know why. I'm trying to cut. I should probably leave you alone.
I got the Susky. I got the Susky still.
Oh yeah, you got the Susky. Yeah. So okay, okay. So if you win the Susky, or if you land in the top 5,
to this. We'll come back to this conversation if I win the Susky. How about that?
So how much are you – let's put it hypothetically. I know you want to say go back to it, but it's too much fun. I can't let it go. So let's say you land in the top 5 in the Susky. Now you got a first place finish, a top 5, which you usually could do. You're from the Northeast area. Now, all of a sudden, Darnell could have been that tournament where it could have edged you closer to give you a puncher's chance to win the TOC. But now the tournament is sold out, which I don't think it's going to be. Okay, let's put it this way: if you get a top 5 finish at the Susky, and you got a chance to go into Darnell and do better than 48 like you did in Toledo and put your name out there for Angler of the Year, would you do it?
Well, if I top 5 at Susky, that would erase the 48 because it's top 3 tournaments. So I'd have to erase. I'd have to do better than 12.
So erase the 12th place, yeah.
Yeah. I'll make you a deal. I'll make you a deal. How about this? If I top 5 at Susky, I'll do Dardanelle if you pay for my gas.
No, I'm not gonna pay for your gas. You got to. You
No,
just.
no, a deal.
You just catch a check. What are you talking about? You just catch a $10,000 check and you catch another $1,500 check. You can pay for your own gas. You got no kids. You're not married.
Yeah, it's over $5 a gallon in New York right now.
And you got a new sponsor too.
Got a new sponsor. That does help.
Asking me to pay you for gas money. Come on, man. Yeah. I don't know, man. I think you should do it. Then you rift it. Well, if you even then, like even with the first place, a top 5, and the 12th place, you still got a shot of AOY at the TLC.
Yeah, you know what? I mean, my headspace right now, kind of where I'm at with it, is I'm going to go into the TOC, focused on the TOC. You know, if something crazy happens, it happens. But it's kind of just not really in my cards right now, if that makes sense. Oh. It's one where I want to go do well to Susky. And, you know, I'm doing it because it's so dang close to home. And I've never fished a tournament on it. Going to go stay with some buddies. You know, Drew Gregory is a really good buddy of mine and talk to him every day, it seems. And never actually traveled a tournament with him. You know, we've met at tournaments and, you know, gotten drinks and stuff, but never actually traveled with him. So it'd be good to finally travel. And it's only a 4-hour drive for me. I really don't have an excuse not to fish that. I wish I could fish Winnipesaukee, but that's the closest tournament to me, and I can't even fish it because I'm working. So that kind of sucks. I kind of feel guilty being a northerner and not fishing the closest, most northern tournament.
And that only has like less than 100, so there's a good chance you land in at least the top 10 on that one.
That place, I've been there. That place sets up perfect for how I like to fish. So it's a tough pill to swallow. No, I think if I called in sick to that one because it's the it's leading up to ICAST, and I have a Abu Garcia media trip that week that I'm pretty sure if I called in sick, I'd get fired. So yeah, don't think I could do that one. But I'm putting you back down in the crotch shot. You can't see the crotch, you see the knees, but I'm gonna make a couple casts here. Hopefully catch you a bass.
We're in the fans only content portion of the
That's right. Podcast. Paddle and fin fans only. That's right.
So going back to kind of circling around to your podcast, you got a new sponsor. Tell us a little bit about your new sponsor and what it means for you.
Yeah, so we just recently announced, you know, we've been in the works with it for a while now, but we have a new title sponsor for Serious Angler, and that is X2 Power Batteries. You know, they've been kind of a secret, almost kind of like a hidden gem amongst the boating realm for their AGM batteries, their cranking batteries. A lot of boaters will run their AGMs, but they just recently dropped a line of lithium batteries. And that is one that I'm running, you know, as we speak right now. I got my Helix 9 and Helix 10 right here that are running off of a 50 amp X2 lithium battery. And they just signed on as our title sponsor. And that's one that we're really excited about because Sean over there, he's the guy that we report to and talk with and came and brought this opportunity. And he's someone that's really excited about fishing, loves the sport, wants to give back to it, you know, believes in us. He's been a longtime fan of the show, you know, watches religiously. And that's something that, you know, that one, we appreciate, but two, the fact that he's believed in the show, you know, and stands behind us, not just, hey, you got a reach, you know, we're going to pay you money, that kind of thing. It's more of, hey, I believe in what you're doing, you know, let's go create some magic. It means a lot. So we're really excited for it because it's a family feel. That's the way he makes, you know, us feel. So it's one we're super pumped about, and it's huge for the show because, you know, we're able to give back to our fans because, you know, we get a code, but two, X2 is in a place where they have a decent amount of product, can give product away, and we're going to be giving back to people. Being that product, batteries are so dang expensive nowadays. We're going to be able to be put in a position to, one, make some really cool content, and two, give away some pretty dang sweet stuff for folks that are looking to save money on batteries, but also be able to get some premium power. So it's a really cool opportunity. We're really pumped about it. It's a perfect fit. They're going to be getting us to the Bassmaster Classic, to ICAST next year, doing live shows. We have some pretty cool content trips with them coming. It's a really cool deal. We're pretty pumped about it.
What are your goals we talked about your goals in fishing, kayak fishing, but what are your goals with your podcast? What would you like to see your podcast 5 years from now?
Man, if you told me Serious Angler's where it's at right now, and you told me that 2.5 years ago when I started it, I tell you're freaking crazy. So honestly, I just want to keep growing it. There's nothing cooler than getting the DMs that we get and the messages, the emails, and people seeing us in public and saying how they learn stuff from the show, because that's like the biggest reason for me to bass fish in general. Like, I don't have to fish tournaments. I don't have to fish the Hobies. I mean, I'm ultra competitive, so that's my reasoning for that. But my biggest thing is I just love to learn, man. And that's why bass fishing is so cool, is because you'll never stop learning. And that's what the preface is for Serious Anglers, just help teach, help to get that message out there, giving guests a voice, but primarily just seeing other people catch bass because of something we say and them thanking us for it. That's freaking cool. As long as we keep doing that, trying to reach more people to get that message across. I'd love to eventually potentially go full time with it one day. But I know there's a lot of variables that need to be, be ready to do that. But it's just, it's a wild ride right now, and I'm just trying to keep surfing that wave.
When you see guys like, and a good friend of yours, and a great content creator in his own right, Alex Rod just announced that, he's retiring from his current job to focus on this as as his main source of income. And first of all, congratulations to Alex Rod. You can catch his live show on YouTube. And I don't know where else, but I know on YouTube you can watch it under Alex Rod Fishing. How does that serve as an inspiration for you? Is that something, and I think you touched on it a little bit, you wanted to do it full time, but would you ever feel comfortable saying, I want to make this a career, or do you feel like making it a career is going to be something that's going to take the fun out of what you do when you enjoy yourself fishing?
That's a really good point, and that's something that's been on my mind. And I'm lucky to call Alex a good friend of mine, and he's one that we're on the phone all the time talking about exactly that. How to manage that, how to grow that, how to manage your personal life, and while trying to chase this fishing dream. Because, man, when you want to do this and you want to do it legit, you can ask any pro angler. Not saying I ever want to be a pro angler. That's the last life I want to have. If you ask any of them, though, or people that really have made fishing or fishing media a full-time gig in their life, it is not easy. You have little to no fish or to no time on your hands. So to be able to try to balance personal life and stuff, and how to make sure that you're not getting burnt out and you're happy, it's tough. And that's one thing I'm very fortunate to have some really good friends that help me with that sort of thing and talk to me through it and guided me through it. But I found myself in a place right now that I'm working full time in the fishing industry. I basically have two full-time jobs. One is the podcast, but then also work in PR for some pretty big companies in the fishing space. I'm not in any rush to change what I'm doing right now, but it is definitely something on my mind where I enjoy my full-time job, but I enjoy the podcast more, and would eventually like to do that full-time someday. But obviously there's a lot of steps that need to be taken to get to that point.
Yeah, and at this point, it doesn't sound like you're pressuring yourself to get to that point. It's more of, so if it ever happens. If it's not, you're good with what you're doing and you're happy with what you're doing in fishing and kayak fishing and with your podcast. Which ultimately, that's the thing. We just all want to be happy and feel like we're enjoying what we're doing. Oops, sorry, hit the mic there.
No, that's exactly right. I mean, I'm not in any rush right now. My fiance has 1 year left to her doctorate. It's more of make as much money as you can right now is the stage that we're in. So we're not rushing to go anywhere, but it's it's one that I'd like to pursue eventually.
Tell me a little bit about on the Serious Angler. Now, your co-host Andrew, who's also a fishing guide up in New York. What is that chemistry like? Because I know Andrew doesn't do any much kayak fishing, if any at all. But you guys seem to have a good chemistry on the mic, and you kind of bounce out of each other's personalities in a way that makes it enjoyable. How did that relationship got to where it was now? Was it a struggle? Or was it always been like that before you even started the podcast?
No, Andrew and I have been friends for a long time, but now Andrew's a brother to me. He's going to be at my wedding. Like, he's my best friend. So I mean, there's times. I mean, he'll tell you too. We'll butt heads. Because I think any successful business, any successful brand, if you're not butting heads, then there's usually a problem. Because what butting heads does is it creates that discussion. It creates a debate. It creates the conversation of basically improvement. Especially when you're able to manage that conversation. It's a healthy debate, right? So that's what Andy and I have. And we just met a while ago, just through fishing the same lakes, and met over social media. Got him. Actually, he was a guest on one of my podcasts like way early on. And it was just fun. Like, we talk all the time over like texts and stuff. And just one day, I think it was like episode 100, where I was like, "Hey, dude, you want to come be my co-host for this thing? I'm going to try a live show." And he hopped on, and it was a kind of cool deal where it just, it flowed and it made sense. And just was like, "Hey, you want, eventually he came on a couple more shows. He's like, "Hey, dude, you want to do this full time? You want to partner up?" And haven't looked back. It's been pretty dang awesome since. Now that we have Deacon from Business from the Bass Boat as our segment on Mondays, it's a pretty cool deal.
Yeah, I was just about to hit to that. You got, is it Brian Deacon? I want to say
Adam
Deacon. Sorry, Adam. Which I got to meet for the first time in Bassmaster Classic last year. Great dude. Also great podcast, Business from the Boat. You can check it out. When does his episode air?
Yeah, so we have 3 episodes a week. Deacons is Monday mornings. They're usually up at 6 a.m. on YouTube and also MP3. So they're up there for the early working folk driving to work, because that's a big demographic that we hit. And then we have Tuesday night live shows on our YouTube, which the MP3s get put up Wednesday morning. And then we have a pre-recorded Serious Angler show on Fridays. Cool. So we have 3 shows a week, 2 that are like fishing / technique / angler based, and Deacons and Business on Mondays.
Nice. And you kind of copying Brian Schiller's formulas to divide and conquer there with all the episodes. It fits into add more, or that's it? 3 episodes a week is the max?
No, that's way too much content. We just basically know that what content we put out, when we space it out, we know that there's a happy ground between not enough and too little. And we're hitting it perfect on the head right now, and it's been working, so we're not going to change anything. And we do not want more episodes, because that's just, 1, too much for people to keep up with, and then 2, it's just a lot for, as a host to, produce. If that's one thing I can do full time, it's something to look at, but I don't think we'd ever go to, even if, if we did go full time, I don't think we'd ever do every day. There's very few shows that you can do it every day and do it successfully.
Yeah, definitely. I agree. One more thing that I wanted to ask you, as far as, the Serious Angler podcast, what do you try? You said you have 3 episodes. Like, what do you, on yours, not necessarily Business from the Boat, which is Adam Deacons, but on your 2 episodes, what's the difference between the live show and the pre-recorded show? Or is it just the same thing? I mean, not the same episode, of course, but what is the difference in content from your live show to your pre-recorded shows?
I mean, they're the same thing. It's just one's live, one's not, just because it's harder for us to schedule 2 live shows a week with our crazy schedules. So that Friday show is one we could do the Sunday before or the night before. It doesn't matter. But yeah, that's basically the preface of it. It's the same thing. It's just one's live, one's not.
Awesome, man. And as far as on the water, who do you? I think you kind of mentioned it with Cody Milton, but who do you look up to as something that you say you want to achieve at that level?
Someone that I know, or someone that I look up to. Do I have to know them?
As far as success on the water, you don't have to know him personally, but when you look at somebody says, man, it necessarily doesn't have to be like having success as Cody Milton, but somebody that is a well-rounded, all-around tournament angler that just doesn't fish that much, but if they did, they will probably wreck them. So it doesn't have to be somebody that's popular or somebody that personally, just in general, as far as what you want to achieve in the level of, I guess, greatness, if you want to mention it, as far as recognition goes on the kayak fishing. Where do you see yourself? Like, who do you look up to? Or is there anybody out there that actually is as successful as you want to be someday? Maybe there's not. Maybe you want to be greater than whoever has achieved greatness at this point.
Man, that's a tough question. I know there's a lot of people that are killing the game right now that, I think I look up to in terms of just how they're going through this and how they pioneered through this industry, like a Drew, like a Cody, like a Christine. There's a bunch of people that are the pioneers of this sport. And I don't want that to ever be forgotten, because what they've done is the only reason, we're winning $10,000.
Of course, yeah.
Around the country right now.
You're getting caught off there a little bit, Randy.
But man, I don't know. I mean, I think that's a tough question, because I really don't try to mold myself after anyone. I kind of like to almost. Hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now. You're coming up better.
Hello?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Can you hear me?
Up better. Yes. I think there might be a lag.
Okay. Sorry, I must have been like a dead zone or something. Okay. Can you hear me right now?
Yes.
You there? Okay. So I think really what I was trying to get at is I don't want to be like anybody else. I know that probably sounds cliche, but I just don't want to mold myself after anybody, because I feel like when you're going after someone or someone else's success or how they do things, you typically forget about what you want to accomplish, how you fish, your style, because I think that's super important. And there's definitely there's no reason why you can't create your own style, your own brand. Yeah. Your own brand, but your own success and your own trail to try to get to that top. Because, just because one person's accomplished this doesn't mean you can't accomplish that tenfold. So, I look up to a lot of people, especially in the sport, but I look up to them in terms of how they guide themselves through the sport, through the industry, how they carry themselves. And I kind of nitpick between different people. There's certain people's strengths that I like more than others, but I can't forget that I have to stay true to myself and know that I have stuff that I can offer. And I just kind of take that as, well-rounding myself to create my own path, throughout this game.
That's a good point. Kind of carve your own success and not necessarily follow the success of other people. I think, and when you think of the sport is being so young, it's not far-fetched to think that at some point somebody's going to be breaking records or, winning at a much higher rate than what we see right now. When you look now, that's on the water. Now, off the water, when you think about your media side of things, Serious Angler, Bailey, Eigbrett, whatever. what about that? What would you accomplish? And is there anybody out there, like, let's say, just an example, like Mike Iaconelli, who has his own TV show now and Ike Life and all that? Is there something along those lines that you truly want to accomplish, or this is more like you're just going for the ride and see where it ends?
Yeah, I kind of just been going with the flow, to be honest with you. Like, my biggest goal about a year and a half ago was basically just to work in fishing, surround my life with fishing. And I've done that. So basically, I'm just my next goal is to don't let that slip up, I guess. So just keep on this trail and just keep trying to grow every facet that I'm involved in. And I guess just see where it takes me. I mean, I've had a lot of really good opportunities presented to me since, going full time with my work, but then also going full time with the podcast. Not certain to say full time with the podcast, but podcast basically is a full time job. It's presented a lot of cool opportunities, a lot of really good connections, a lot of great friends that I've met that I would not have met if I hadn't done the podcast. So I don't know where it's going to go, but I'm going to keep riding it out and see where it takes me.
And as far as combining your content creation with and that includes the podcast, with what you've done on the water, what do you think is the one thing you're most proud of? Any accomplishments, whether it's on the water or off the water, as it relates to fishing, of course?
Man, I think I'm most proud of just the people I've met, the people that I get to talk to every day, the people that are going to be in my wedding that I wouldn't be in my wedding if I didn't start the podcast. That's probably the coolest thing for me. Just for that reason, just because without that, I would have never met that person, and they mean a lot in my life. So I think that's what I'm most proud of, because all the rest of it can be duplicated, replicated, and that can't.
Yeah, that definitely. When you think about the people you met on the water, like just Drew Gregory, man. Drew Gregory is such a nice guy. You couldn't ask for any. And there's a lot of nice guys and nice girls on the water. Don't get me wrong. Christine Fisher, right. I think she's a great human being. Guillermo Gonzalez, I can say the same thing about Guillermo Gonzalez, Drew Gregory, Cody Milton. Such a nice group of people that is just, it's hard not to overlook that. It's hard to overlook the fact that, regardless of the success on the water, the people that are around you when you are on the water and when you're talking fishing, all that. Rolando 19, which I got to meet as well. And it's just not just because of their success on the water, but just the human nature. I just makes me feel a better person just being around them, or inspired 100%. To be a better person. Yeah.
That's right.
But yeah, I've had you over an hour, and I appreciate your time. I know you're pre-fishing for a tournament, so glad we can compromise. I still hold it against you that you didn't catch a bass while we were recording, and so the whole crotch, viewpoint was wasted there.
I thought you'd like that.
No, but. Still, we thank you. And before I let you go, I kind of want to give you a few minutes to give shout outs. I know you've had a lot of people and a lot of companies that have helped you both on and off the water. So please take your time.
Yeah, I mean, one, thank you for the invite. It's always fun to get on here and chat with you boys. And then really, shout out to X2 Power, pumped for the partnership, pumped for these lithium batteries that are freaking sweet and are kicking butt right now. Actually, I've noticed my graphs get clear, so that's a plus. It's actually my first day running these lithiums. And then big shout out to Ryan and team at Morgan Marine. They tailor to the way I beat up my Hobies. So they have been absolutely awesome to me and treated me like family. So huge shout out to them. They're probably the best Hobie dealer in the Northeast. So. Big shout out to them. Big shout out to all my sponsors just in general. I could go through the list, but they know who they are and their support that we show as a two-way street. So it's a fun deal, especially when you get to work with people that believe in you and you believe in their product. So, but thank you, man, for getting me on here. This is a lot of fun.
No, man, it's an honor to have you on the podcast, and we wish you the best moving forward where can people follow you? And I know you mentioned it, but kind of remind everybody, where can people follow you on social media, and where can people listen to your podcast?
Yeah, so you can listen to the Serious Angler podcast. You can either watch it on YouTube, or if you're Apple, Anchor, Spotify, Google Podcasts, all that jazz, you can listen to us there. But you can find Serious Angler on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. Then you can find me myself, just Bailey_Eigbrett on Facebook and Instagram. So, and also you can find my personal YouTube channel if you want to watch the Chasing Hardware series I do, which is around the Hobies, filming the Hobie tournaments. That's on the channel called Be the Fish, capital BE the Fish, and that's like obviously I'll link to my social, makes it easier. So, yeah, that's about it.
There you go, guys and girls. If you love kayak fishing as much as we do, go follow Bailey Eigbrett at all the places you mentioned. Bailey, again, thank you. For those out there being on the water, if you're going to be on the water, please wear your PFD. If you're going to have a couple of beers, just please drink responsibly. Take care of yourself. Beat the heat. It's crazy hot summer here in Texas. It's start of June and we're already triple digits. I don't know how many days in a row, but it's going to be crazy fishing. It's probably going to suck for the next couple of months, judging by how the temperatures are. But either ways, have a great time on the water, guys. Thank you for listening. Peace out.